Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and we're kicking off a series of pattern fitting videos. So I'm going to be showing you how to do fit alterations so that you end up with clothes that fit your body better. Today's topic is going to be about blending sizes on a pattern. So it is very common when you measure yourself to end up in several different columns on the sizing chart. Now, the very first thing to know to be getting a good fit for yourself is to make sure you are accurately measuring yourself. So I have a video just about how to take your own measurements, and I've linked that one below. But once you have those accurate measurements, what happens if your bust, your waist, your hips are in different categories? And on my particular patterns, I always include a high bust measurement on my size chart because that helps you determine your frame size. Your high bust is most closely correlated to your shoulder size, and that may or may not correlate with your actual bust, waist, and hips very much at all. So what do you do if you're in different columns on the size chart? Well, some of it is going to be covered in things like full bust adjustments. For example, me personally, I am a smaller size in my high bust than I am in my full bust, and so I usually have to do a full bust adjustment. And that is something I've already done a video on, and that is also linked below. But what if, say, your waist and your hips are different than your upper body, your bust and your high bust or shoulders? Well, then you can just easily blend sizes on a pattern and create your own custom size. So let me show you how to do that. I'm using the Austin T pattern here, which is a pattern that's available in my shop. It also happens to be the one that I am currently wearing. And you can kind of see on the pattern, based on where the lines are curving, like this point that is furthest in is the waist. This point is going to be where the fullest part of the bust is. And down here, that's where it's going to hit over your hips. So to pick your base size, you're going to want to start with your high bust measurement for a shirt. So on me, I'm going to highlight here my size based on the measurements of the size chart. But then, let's say, which is the case, that my waist is a little bit bigger than the measurement for my shoulders or my waist in that base size. So what I would want to do is come out here to the waist marking, and I just want to mark where I'm going to come out to that waist size, one size up. And then my hips are actually a bigger size than my top as well. I'm pretty pear-shaped. So I would also want to mark out on the hips, like where do I want the hips to go? And then all you have to do once you're done with that is to connect the dots. So I'm going to go from that bust size, connect it to the new waist size, and then from that point, I'm going to flare it out to the hip size that I'd like to cut. You can do the same thing if you are longer than the pattern is. You can add to the hem, or you can slash on that lengthen shorten line. The grading between sizes that I am doing is for the circumference of the body. The other thing is, after you have done this, you want to check your seams. So make sure that any seam that you altered, in this case, the side seam, that you look at the other pattern pieces that connect here, and you're going to want to do the same thing. In this case, because I am working on the front of the t-shirt, I would want to check and make sure that I've matched the back of the t-shirt at the side seam to have the same alterations. And then you can just cut it out. There we go. In my opinion, this is one of the best reasons to sew for yourself because you don't have to get hung up in what your measurement size should be. You can just customize to what your measurements actually are and make your own custom size. Let's talk about what you would do if you were doing this with pants. So with pants, you're going to want to start with your hips as the base size because that is the area that is going to be most affected by the crotch curve and is the most important to fit. It is easier to slim or widen thighs and waist than hips. So once again, I'm going to start with my base size here on the pants, and I'm going to outline the size that I want there. Now, let's say that I needed to go into a smaller size for my waist. I would highlight where I wanted to come in, and then at the hip point where I wanted to be instead. So you're essentially drawing a new hip curve. And then I actually personally usually have thinner thighs, and I need to bring this in a little bit. So again, I'm gonna go and about mid-thigh here, I'm gonna highlight a smaller size, and then I'm just connecting the dots. So that would accommodate where I typically carry my weight. I also tend to have bigger calves, so I would want to come back out mid-calf to a larger size, and then highlight that. And in that way, I would be able to make a custom sized pant for myself as a base to start with. Now, of course, I always recommend starting with a muslin. With pants, you don't have to sew the whole way down unless you're particularly concerned about your calf fit. You can kind of cut them off at the knee level and have a pretty good idea of fit just from that point. Because again, this crotch curve is what affects fit the most in my experience. So you could baste all of this together and then check your fit. For more detailed things about pants fitting, I have another video that I have linked below, and I'm putting all of these fit tip videos, things like measuring, bust adjustments, how to fit pants, they're all in this playlist, so you can check through the playlist and see which ones are applicable to you to get a better fit for your hand-sewn clothing.